it's Canada, And all of a sudden, one of the gingerbread men just like starts sliding and ends up hitting a building on the side of the street. And the other gingerbread man goes, "Oh, snap!"
Oh, that's fantastic. Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which is
the
longest running weekly business talk
show
on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on the IBGN Internet Radio Network. Today, we're talking about how to unlock the book within you. And we're going to be joined by Joshua Lisec to help guide our discussion. A prolific ghostwriter, having worked on 80 full-length books and thousands of articles and sales pages, Joshua brings a wealth of experience in turning your expertise into influential written words. But before we bring him on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. And while we're doing that, why don't you reach out to a friend and have them join us? Ping them. Let them know that this is an interactive experience. We strive to make the digital download audience-centric, so audience participation is highly encouraged. All right, with that, let's go with some introductions. Adam, would you kick us off, please?
Yes, I'd love to. I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I find myself back at my mum's house again, hence the fact I haven't got a Christmas jumper. However, I did pop out this morning, and whilst I couldn't find a jumper, what I could find eminently suitable for me.
Oh, dear. Yes. That checks. Bah humbug.
Yeah. It's important to own your personal brand, Adam.
It certainly is. Yes. So this seemed eminently suitable for today. So hello and welcome, and it's lovely to be here in the last show of the year.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Welcome. Tracy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Borison, owner and founder of TLB Coaching and Events, a proud DLA Ignite partner. And I happen to love Christmas sweaters, aka Christmas jumpers. This one I have today happens to be a t-shirt. I have t-shirts, I have sweaters, I have long sleeve. I have this really amazing sweater vest my grandmother made for me. So if you're a fan of sweaters, then you should come and check out all of the live shows I'm doing next week, because I will have a different one on every single live show. That's my promise.
Tim. Tracy, is it correct that you've actually told your husband that you're going to get a new Christmas jumper every year?
Yes, I told this to Tim the other day. It's a collection, which means I need a new one every year. This is actually, oh snap, is new for this year. And also, I have every intention of, whenever it makes sense in the conversation today, to stand up and say, "Oh snap." That's me.
I'm looking forward to that.
So it's like an interactive jumper.
Yes. Yeah, it's like a jumper.
There we go.
Rather
Before we move on, I wanted to address a couple of comments. Alex joins us from the audience today.
Alex,
hello, my digital friends. So sorry I couldn't be with you today. Happy Christmas to you and our beloved audience.
Alex, were you just getting out of having to wear a Christmas jumper?
that could be
good.
good.
We wore one yesterday, Tracy.
Well, maybe he only has one and he doesn't want a back-to-back.
Yeah, but it truly was horrible, wasn't it? Yesterday's jumper that Alex wore.
Now I have to watch the video.
And Andrew Slesser says, "Good morning, afternoon, all." Wave to Andrew, and Andrew waves back to the monitor. So we're told. Welcome, Andrew. All right. Sorry for that distraction. Tim, welcome.
Yes, my name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Welcome. And myself, I am Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results, a proud DLA Ignite partner, And I'm not famous for writing anything.
Which is
Let's
why
use that
Rob's
as a great
excited about
transition.
this title today.
Exactly. With that, let's bring on our guest. As I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Joshua Lisec, with a unique talent for capturing and elevating his clients' voices and ideas. His works not only encompass diverse niches, but also have led to significant media coverage and opportunities for his clients, such as features in major news outlets and speaking engagements. Through his course series, The Best Way, he's taught over 2,600 students the art of persuasive writing across various formats. Bringing him on, good morning and welcome, Joshua.
Morning,
Hello there.
Joshua. Good to
Pretty
see
stoked
you.
to be here. Rob, Tim, Tracy, Adam. It'll be a fun time together today.
Absolutely. Looks like you've joined in the festivities as well.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I was going to say, looks like this is a pretty cool jumper, actually.
Yes.
Isn't that good?
That's very nice.
Excellent. Joshua, welcome. Why don't we have you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here?
Yes, I think you did a fantastic opening there. I appreciate that. Most people want to say, how do you get into the ghostwriting business in the sort of professional persuasion niche? And in my case, there was no intent. It was completely by accident. My objective from the very beginning, since I could write, was to be a novelist, because I learned early on that fiction is where you can tell the entire unvarnished truth, unpopular as it may be. But nonfiction, in order for it to be commercially viable, most of the time, but not all, most of the time, it has to make stuff up. It has to shorten stories and cut unnecessary details. And it has to make something big out of something that wasn't. This is why so many biopic films of famous people follow a 3-act structure, even if their life did not. And the everyday humdrum boring moments were not included. So I was never an aspiring nonfiction writer. I always wanted to be fiction. And so I had a small 2-book publishing deal with a small independent press. And I was 20 years old at the time. And then something interesting happened. As I'm signing copies and doing author events, workshops, panels, that sort of thing, taking selfies on flip phones back when you had to turn the phone all the way around and it would be off center and blurry. 2 of my readers, independently of one another, asked the exact same question. They said, Joshua, I've wanted to write a book longer than you've even been alive, and you went and did it twice on me. Can you just help me with mine? And both of theirs were autobiographies, memoirs. But they had found out the same problem that I've just identified. They said, when I went to write my own book, my own autobiography, I didn't even want to read it, much less write it. It was so boring. I was born here to these parents who worked in these fields, and we lived here for 5 years, and we moved. I don't want to read a Wikipedia article about my life. Who else would want to do that? I want something that's like a story, but mostly true. Not inventing facts. And that began my ghostwriting journey 12 years ago.
Wow. Excellent. So let's start with this. Although it's on a lot of people's New Year's resolutions lists, why would somebody actually want to sit down and undertake the process of writing a book?
There's usually 2 answers to that. The first answer is because I just want to. Because I just want to. And I believe the idea here is that as self-publishing and technologies have made book writing and publishing and distribution accessible to anyone with an internet connection and basic word processing software, that dream is now available for anyone to pursue. Because why not? It's the same reason anyone would pursue, let's say, a labor of love project. Roughly 90% of people want to write a book, according to the latest New York Times poll survey. But do 90% of people write a book? No, they do not. So the desire for it is close to universal. The follow through on that, like with most things, most let's say most New Year's resolutions seem to fall through within the first few weeks. Like by Valentine's Day, completely gone.
Valentine's Day. That's generous.
Fair enough. The last few laggards who are hanging on, the holdouts, they're gone by then when the chocolates come in, right? But the other reason that people do write a book, they do follow through on it, is because they feel they have to. Now, why would they feel they have to? It's a wanting to versus deciding to. It would be nice versus I don't really have a choice. I have to do this. And that compelling experience that they have is for usually a purpose that's greater than themselves. So, for example, someone who feels like they have to write a memoir, and I've done a few of these over the years, is someone who is one of the last of their kind, the last of their generation. So think a World War II veteran who saw combat experience prior to the Allied invasion of, let's say, of German forces in Western Europe. People who grew up during the Battle of Britain and recall wandering into the shelter in the backyard or having to move to the north of England, for example, when they were children. That sort of a memoir where their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren now have no concept of living in a world like that where trauma at that level across the world was normal. And how do you have a childhood? How do you reintegrate into society after that? Those sorts of stories, not quite always at that level in that era, but I gotta let people know what it was like. That is one reason why people follow through on writing their memoir. For other nonfiction books, it's usually for a business reason, and it's because their colleagues, clients, stakeholders in the business have been begging them for 5+ years. When are you going to write the book? Come on, finish your book. When's your book coming out? You got to write a book. You got to write a book. And they're just like, I don't want to. It sounds so hard. I don't have time for that. I'm not a writer. And so eventually they just run out of excuses. And something happens. And usually that something is they see someone who started later in their industry than they did, who doesn't have nearly as many credentials, not nearly as much clout, get a major book deal. And now they're the elevated authority in the space. And then they say to themselves, oh, that's not cool. That should have been me. That should have been me. And then that's when they have that final confirmation. Okay, I have to do this. And then at that point, it's any number of logical reasons. Well, I want authority and I want credibility and I want blah, 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 blah. But it's usually a moment like that pushes them over the edge and say, okay, we can do marketing, we can do advertising, we could do PR, but this person leapfrogged me by doing a book. Not cool. So there's both personal and professional reasons for doing that. And usually the personal reasons stay private and they don't share those on interviews.
So how can writing a book impact the career trajectory of a mid-career professional or executive?
Yes, we see across industries and in niches you could say a hockey stick rise in their visibility, their attention that they can command, where they become the news. A quick example of this is as a co-founder of a law firm that works with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and CEOs. And prior to Authorship, this client's name is Rafe. Prior to the release of Rafe's book, when he would be doing interviews, it would be the context is his business. His business, his career. There wasn't a call to action. And this is what the key is, where the value is for that leader. There's a call to action. Before a book, for a lot of them, there's not necessarily a call to action. Visit my website, connect with me on LinkedIn. There's no way to get and keep, or rather, no, there's not necessarily a reason to get and keep attention. Maybe there's a blog that you write, or you post some fun stuff on Twitter X from time to time. But when you have a book, you can accrue clout and you become the news. So now Rafe is regularly consulted by major business networks, appears on television, appears on the radio. He appears in mainstream publications where his ideal clientele are, or people who he can make deals with, who can open doors for him. Are, hey, Rafe, saw you in this, saw that you wrote this book. I wanted to connect with you. I think I want to do business with you in some way. Versus just going out and promoting his, let's say, name, his personal brand, where there's not really a reason to do so. So what a book does is it gives you a reason to become the news. So they don't say, okay, we're going to talk about this person who's in need of a new job. Like, that's not really a reason to assign you authority, credibility, and a perception of expertise. When you've got a book, you become the news. You become a source of information. And so whenever Rafe is quoted in the media or interviewed by a journalist in a major publication, they always say, Rayford Palmer, author of. And that little author of suffix there, they don't even mention his credentials or list out, JD, right, behind his name. They put Rayford Palmer, author of. And so by becoming author of, there is a significant assignment of credibility and expertise so that you can effectively throw a line into the next thing that you want to do. And so I do work with CEOs and executives and entrepreneurs, founders, presidents, that sort of position. And usually what they want is they want to give the world a reason to pay attention to them as a personal brand rather than as this sort of corporate figurehead or the name or face of the business or associated with the brand. They want to raise their profile for the next thing that they want to do.
If I'm hearing you correctly, that author of line is effective whether you've gotten a major book deal from a major publisher, a minor book deal from a minor publisher, or you self-publish through the various platforms. Is it viable to think that somebody could go out and publish their own book and get that same type of authority, if you will?
Yes, so long as the book is commercially viable and industry standard. So not necessarily a cover thrown together with stock photography that makes it look like every other single cover that's thrown together by self-publishers with stock photography, where the paper is white and cheap looking and the fonts used, the typefaces that are used, are all the ones that are default inside of Microsoft Word or from Google Docs, for example. It's like, oh, this is a Google Doc in print. This is not a real book. And maybe it's 70 pages, flimsy, and a cheap glossy cover. Oh, this isn't a real book.
See, and this is the question I have, Joshua, because of the the ease of self-publishing nowadays. I have I'm a bookstore book kind of person, right? When I go to the bookstore and they have books, then I'm like, okay, authorship. You're in a bookstore. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything about the content, right? That doesn't actually mean that a self-published book can't have content. But I know a lot of self-publishers who publish their book because you said I want to, right? I want to have a book, and then it kind of it doesn't add to their personal brand. It doesn't generate leads for them. It doesn't create that kind of authorship that we're really talking about. So is there a step in between that people would need to do if they are self-publishing to get to that stage?
Yes, so independent authors can be in bookstores. They can appear at book fairs. They can appear and have front displays at major bookstores, big huge signs. I've got my books in bookstores. Clients of mine have, being independently published. But the key is to not technically self-publish. What you have to do is you have to open your own publishing imprint, effectively. Now, this is relatively easy and straightforward to do if you are a nerd in this industry, like I am. But what you do not want to be is independently published on Amazon or independently published by KDP. That sort of designation where your publisher is like a distributor or rather a retail platform. Okay, that's not real. But if your publisher, like in my case, my publisher of my book is lisecghostwriting.com. Now, why did I do that? Free internet traffic to my website. Free internet traffic to my website. This is one of the PR 101. Anytime you can give somewhere else to go after learning a little bit about you, call to action. And by the way, there are several authors who are well known in the business space who are doing the same thing, where instead of just having the name of their business, the name of the business.com or .co.uk, for example, or what have you, is that they've made that the imprint name, so people will look it up and go right to their website for additional lead gen. So even if someone doesn't buy the book, just by reading the sample, let's say on Amazon or browsing, they can send them somewhere to go. Now, 85% of all book sales occur on Amazon.com or through the Amazon system worldwide. There are still the eclectic bookstores and the mainstream bookstores where people do go to browse and buy books. When I did a book launch event at my local bookstore, there was a few hundred people who went in and out there all day, and fewer than, I would say, maybe 5% of them left with anything in their hands besides a cup of Joe coffee, because there's a coffee shop there. Why were they going there? To browse books? And you could see people looking at the aisles with their phone out. What were they likely doing? Likely looking up reviews of books and then adding them to their Audible, or downloading it on Kindle, or ordering it from Amazon for $5 cheaper, for example. So that seems to be a way to like discover new books, going to a bookstore and then buying from Amazon, even if you're in store getting your coffee on the way and reading it on your Kindle, listening to the audiobook, for example. But you are correct in that there are books that can be published that don't necessarily assign authority to the author. So authorship does not necessarily equate to authority. It has to do with the seriousness that people come to it with to create a commercially viable industry standard product. For example, there is a refrain amongst business authors, be they executives or entrepreneurs, and that refrain is, a book is the new business card. A book is the new business card. And they treat it as such. A lot of people do what? They go to vistaprint.com to do what? Get their low cost, nearly free 500 business cards printed that have a free template available where they just type in their name, they type in their address and whatnot onto the business card and have it done and shipped. And look how fast I had this. This was so easy. I love Vistaprint. Sent me my 500 business cards for $15. Shipping was included. Wow, it's so cool. It's a business card. Now, what happens with a business card is most people will throw it away after looking at the person on LinkedIn, seeing if they like what they see. We don't quite have the days of a Rolodex anymore for at least younger generations of business professionals, and also people who don't want to have stacks of business cards lying around. When we bring that same perspective to authorship, Amazon KDP, so cool. Anyone can write a book. Look, I can just throw up a cover that I made inside of Canva or Microsoft Paint that I really, really like and is so cool. And I just added a bunch of blog posts to a Google Doc. I threw chapter names on them, and now I got a real book. Download it, use the free software Kindle Create to create both the softcover and the ebook. And I really like this title because it's based on a poem that I wrote when I was a kid. Oh, it's so meaningful to me. And then they throw it up on Amazon KDP and sell 4 copies in the first month and wonder what went wrong. It's a slight exaggeration, Tracy, just a slight exaggeration. But that mentality of a book as a new business card, the trouble is that carries over into the printing of business cards versus this. Now, someone who wants the best business card they could possibly have is probably going to hire a graphic design firm, or they have an in-house graphic designer already because they want the best. They're going to do what? They're going to think about personal branding. They're going to have a strategy. They're going to think, what associations do I want people to have? Well, I may not necessarily want light blue because that's super common. I also don't want colors that give off a warning like red or orange. See, they're aware of these things. They have an understanding of consumer psychology before they jump into this and, wow, look, it's so easy, cheap, and free. If it's easy, cheap, and free, everyone's going to do the easy, cheap, and free route. And so you're going to have a lot of people stack up at the bottom with crappy business cards and crappy books, frankly, that are about as worth a business card, which is free, to receive, and you probably throw it away, or at least forget it as soon as it's out there. So the same, let's say, care brought to a business card and your personal brand and perception of value, what your name means. Is there going to be a personal brand watermark? For example, the J.R.R. Tolkien, J.R.R.T. that are together that make up his logo. Imagine taking that same care to your personal brand and same thought going into how you want to represent yourself. That same mentality applied to authorship gets very different results, especially when you put a direct response copywriting spin on your book. Direct response copywriting, of course, is what advertisers do, be they internet or print or what have you, to go from someone not having heard of you before, seeing your ad and say, oh, I think I need that. Oh, I think I want that. That sounds interesting. That's what I've been looking for. How'd I know? that level of resonance and relevance, when you bring that to a book, the title and subtitle then become a headline, meaning the title and subtitle must elucidate a desire that customers, clients, stakeholders, people you want to connect with and have read your book. They read your title and go, whoa, that's new, that's different, that's interesting. What's that? I want that. I want that. Or
Isn't there a risk, though, that in the old way of doing things, you would send your manuscript to whoever, Bloomsbury or Penguin or Random House or whoever the publisher was. They would read your manuscript and then they would send it back to you saying, thank you very much, but no thank you. Or they would say, this is a great book you've got here, Joshua. I would very much like to publish this. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, you'll have multiple publishers that will say, I would like exclusivity of publishing this. And then they have a bidding war and you get a huge advance and they get massive sales. But what there is between you, I don't mean you, Joshua, I mean me, the person that thinks they have something to say, the person that believes that they're an expert, and the world who thinks I'm an idiot, you have a quality control person that sits in between the two, that reads the manuscript and says, you know what? Actually, you have no idea what you're talking about, Adam. We don't want any association with your book. And the problem now, or is the problem now, that there is such a proliferation of books out there. Everybody can publish. You can go through that traditional route. I can send my manuscript to Kogan Page or Pearson or whoever, and they agree to publish it, and then they pay me, and I take a royalty, or they pay in advance, or whatever the relationship is. Or I can go to a small publishing house where I part fund that, or I can go to a ghostwriter like yourself, or I can self-publish, or I can self-publish and not even produce any physical books and just publish it on the internet. And the problem from the reader's perspective is that there are so many millions upon millions of books being published that even if yours is brilliant, and it won't be because, I don't know what I'm talking about, so I've got nothing interesting to say. The problem is that people can't find it anyway. Where once upon a time there were 4 books published a year, now there's 4,000 books published an hour. How do people find these books? And is this proliferation and spread and ramping up an issue?
it is an issue, and you're correct that quality control is necessary in the same way that if you give great time, care, and resources to, let's say, the presentation of your personal brand, you're probably consulting with experts who do this all the time. And those experts, for the purposes of book publishing, are accessible to you. For example, I've worked directly with publishers, traditional publishers. I worked solo also with independent authors. So you might say that I'm an industry insider, and I bring that same attention to the industry standard. The people who lay out the books, who do the copy editing of books for major publishers, the big 5, let's say, in the United States, what do? They employ subcontractors, freelancers, who you can also work with directly and independently yourself to get that same quality control. Now, about the visibility, about the distribution, there are roughly 2,000 queries, which are cover letters or pitches for a book, that a typical literary agency receives in a week. The good agencies, 2,000 a week. And they might take on 4, 5, 6 new authors a year. So if you run the numbers, literary agents are the gatekeepers for the publishing industry. So it's extraordinarily rare to work directly with a big publisher now, or even a small publisher. It's using the literary agent as the go-between. And because there's so many aspiring authors attempting to go the traditional route, from a literary agent's perspective, how are they going to bias their results? Meaning, who are they going to work with? Well, one thing that the big agencies do, who have relationships with the key acquisitions editors at the largest imprints of the largest publishing houses, they have a small army of unpaid interns who, upon receiving the cover letters, the queries, put them all in a spreadsheet. They then do their internet research and look up the number of social media followers, the domain, age, and rank in internet search results. And then they rank the queries they've received based on who has the largest audience, the largest following. Because the publishing industry understands that between 0.5 and 3%, somewhere in there, of your existing audience is going to buy your book. So let's say you've got 1 million followers. That's an automatic book deal without even seeing your book. They can hire a freelance ghostwriter off of Upwork to finish that for you. Because they know roughly on average 25,000 copies will be sold. And if we can get you to spend 6 months promoting it, that's New York Times bestseller for us. As a publisher, that makes us look good. Automatic book deal. You could have no idea what you're talking about. You could be a complete idiot, but you're effectively guaranteed to sell about 25,000 copies of your book. There's not attention to quality because of the number of options. And it's much more risky to choose someone with a great manuscript, but 40 Facebook friends, no LinkedIn profile, and a Twitter X page that hasn't been updated since 1990, I was going to say, but you get the idea, right? It's so much riskier for the publisher to put in resources. The publisher has to do nothing at all to market a book to that person who has 1 million followers.
But isn't this incredibly depressing for the quality of content that is created? You know, I do not want to read a book from somebody famous. I want to read a book that I enjoy reading. I want to read a book that is a good story and is well written. And actually, if the barometer for whether or not you get published is not, is it a good book? In the case of a business book, does it empower and educate and get people to behave differently? If it literally is just a vomit of words onto a sheet of paper, this is a terribly sad indictment of publishing, isn't it? And I say this because both Tim and I have written multiple books that have been published through traditional publishing houses, and it's one of the greatest, I guess, the greatest concerns of mine is that from a business perspective, and we're both non-fiction authors rather than fiction authors. From a business perspective, my concern is that I spend, and I know I speak for Tim here as well because we wrote a book together, I spend a huge amount of time thinking about what is it that I'm trying to communicate? What action do I want people to take? How can I educate and encourage these people to take this action for their own benefit? How can this thing that I'm creating make a difference to the reader? And I certainly know from my experience and when Tim and I worked together, and the book was written, the draft was written, it was submitted to the editor came back and said, you need to rewrite this, and you need to rewrite this, and this isn't very clear, and I don't understand this, so you need to word this a different way. And it was very much an iterative process until what was created was something that you could put in front of somebody, you could expect them to read it and understand what was said and hopefully take action and benefit from that. And then on the back of this, we then see books that are published by people that do not deploy that level of diligence. They don't really care what they say. They want to have a book, exactly your point, Joshua, that this is a business card, and better to put a 200-page book down in front of you than it is to put a square of paper down in front of you to prove my credibility. And that's the is that the death knell to publishing and the creation of books?
I'm going to redirect the conversation at this point. Let's table the fact that most of the books out there suck, because the book that's in me is really, really good. And we're unlocking the book within our audience. Theirs is really, really good. Yeah, there's competition, but competition's no damn good. Thinking about the book within you, and 90% of people want to unlock the book within them. Some might even get to the point where they do something about that. What are the common challenges professionals face when translating their industry experience to authorship? And I open this to the 3 authors we have on screen now. Joshua, I'd like your take on that, but Tim and Adam, you've both been through that process as well. please share your experiences with that. How do
May
I
I
get?
clo-
Please go ahead.
yeah, so may I close the loop with Adam and then open this one with you, Rob?
Have at it.
Okay, so what's not going to change, Adam, is according to Nielsen, which is above BookScan. The BookScan is the New York Times and other major newspapers. According to Nielsen, 92% of all book sales are attributable to word of mouth marketing. That's where we want to focus our attention. So whether you have a large enough audience or a big enough name to get a book deal traditionally, or let's say your book is industry standard because you've taken the time and due diligence to hire industry professionals for each of these things, even just borrowing the same people who work at Penguin Random House or Henry Holt, for example, because they just hire subcontractors off of Upwork. They just hire random, for freelancers, and they just send the work to them. That's who you're working with. If it's a traditional publisher, anyway, you can hire them outright as a self-published, as an independent author, and take that time and attention to produce a word of mouth marketing worthy book. And that is not going to change with someone doing a little social selling for you. Now, with you, Rob, and this question of would people get stuck? It's on exactly this. What is a commercially viable book? What is a word of mouth marketable book? And whether the person is going traditional or going independent. Usually the issue that I see consistently that kind of dooms a book, even if it had all the makings of 2.5% of or 3% even or more of the audience buying the book, and it flops despite what the publisher anticipating. Or let's say I have a really small but engaged audience and I know they're going to praise it and market. I'm going to get to 1,000 copies sold real quick and then it's just going to take off from there. One of the reasons they don't get there is because the promise is not enticing enough. It's not interesting enough. It's not pattern interrupt. It's not provocative. It doesn't build tension. It just kind of sits there. Like, let's say, An Executive's Guide to Productivity. That is really boring, and it sounds like about 5,000 other books on it. Or it will have an obtuse, maybe a little bit of an arcane title. Something, let's say, just picking the leadership productivity. It would be something like Winter's Secret. Is that a novel? What even is that? And then the subtitle is something obtuse like My Experience as an Executive Learning Productivity Tips in the Coldest Months of the Year. What is that even about? What's happening there? Now, the traditional publisher says, title's fine, let's go with it. You're going to sell 25,000 copies anyway. Let's go. Right? Because they're counting on the author and their track record to market the book themselves. So that's why the publishing industry has changed, is because publishers are more risk averse because fewer than 10% of all published books make money. They produce profit. 90% are flops or barely break even. So they're looking for the ones that have the highest chance of selling the most copies. But from the small independent, small press or independent author's perspective, if people read your book title and say, oh, that's nice, good job, that is a bad sign. Especially if it's friends and family. Oh, you have such a good book. I loved it. You get the alpha readers, right? The first people to read your book. Oh, your book was so good. Oh, the title is it's so pretty. Bad sign. What is a good sign is you get polar opposite responses. That's a stupid title. Why would you? What is it even? I don't like that. Or they say, can you send me the pre-order link for that? Those are the only two responses that are good for the promise of the book, the pitch of the book, premise of the book. And one thing I've had my authors do is test this, whether they're like doing networking or they're meeting colleagues, for example, or at an industry function. And I will tell them to drop the name, drop the title and subtitle of the book that you're working on. And if they say, oh, I want to buy that, like, would you like to place a pre-order? Oh, yeah, definitely. Right now? Yeah, here's $20. Can you, I'll put your name down. Cash is confirmation you're on to something. Or hatred is confirmation. Now, a good example of this is my book, So Good They Call You a Fake. Sold almost 4,000 copies since summer here. And when people hear the title, So Good They Call You a Fake, it has two responses. Oh, wow. That reminds me, the first time someone called me a fraud, a fake, and a cheater, that was when I realized I'd made it. It's like a rite of passage. Is that what the book is about? how to turn haters into cash. Exactly. Wow. And then they immediately get it, and then they want to buy it, and then they want to buy 5 copies of it. Right? I hear that a lot. People buy 5 copies, 10 copies for Christmas gifts, that sort of thing. Or they will say, I don't want to be called a fake. What are you talking about? And they get a little uppity and a little offended, actually, when they first hear the title of the book. I don't want to be called a fake. That's my reputation at stake. And you'll see one of those 2 responses. So the title is kind of like a headline in an ad, where if the headline is awful, it doesn't matter how great the product is. It's not going to get the attention. It's not going to get the engagement. So spend 80, I think it was Dan Kennedy, the copywriter, who said you should spend 80% of your time writing a headline of your advertisement. Not even the body copy on the sales page itself. It's all about the headline. And I feel that's the attention and care that ought to be given to the title and subtitle of the book. Is the promise unique, interesting, enticing, exciting enough, curiosity, arousing enough, energizing enough? Or is it, that sounds like 50,000 other books? Is it health and wellness principles for longevity? I feel like I've read that book before. Now, the best way to do word of mouth marketing, if word of mouth marketing is what sells the most books, the best way to doom it is to get the headline right and then botch everything else. Where, let's say you have an exciting book title. I'll offer up mine as a bad example of this, hypothetically speaking. So let's say my book, So Good They Call You a Fake, is about how to get attention and turn all kinds of attention into greater personal brand awareness, recognition, so on and so forth. But then you open the book and I say things like, one of the best ways to get attention is to get reviews on your LinkedIn profile. A review on a LinkedIn profile is where someone can recommend. I already know that. Why? I can find that for free online. I'm offended. 1 star. Not only am I not finishing that book, I'm not telling anyone about it. So that seems to be an issue that you have with both of them, where either, and I say this a lot, by the way, they'll absolutely nail the subtitle and title of the book, but then the content is effectively Googleable or ChatGPTable, or I already know it. And so I feel like it was clickbait, effectively, right? Or the other way around, where you spend years on the content based on your knowledge base and expertise, but then the title and subtitle, they just sit there and there's no emotional cultivation, be it positive or negative. It's just, that's nice. That's accurate for the title of the book, yes. It's just nice, and it's not going to go anywhere. We got to have both quality content and this exciting but polarizing title of the book that says, no way, that's terrible. Or they say, can I pay you 25 right now? I have a 20 and a 10 right here. Can I put my name down? Those are the best 2 feedback: the hate and the buy.
We have a question from our audience. Andrew Slesser asks, once there is a trend in the market, do major publishers suddenly saturate the market with similar themes, but inferior in content? And if so, how are the public able to identify this without losing enthusiasm?
Would you like me to go with that, or Tim or Adam, do you want to take a stab at that?
No, you're the expert.
Joshua, it's your show, mate.
Sure thing. So, if you have been to, I can go back a few years. One of my very first jobs was working at a library, and one of the jobs that I did at a library was to unbox. This is almost 15 years ago. Was to unbox new books that had come in, and you could see which books were being ordered in which quantity. Did we order 2 copies of it, or did we order 200 copies of it, and all of them have been reserved, and so we have to set it to be 7-day checkout. A lot of libraries here in Ohio and in the States generally, it's like a normal 21-day checkout, but 7 days checkout. Oh, there's really something here. And whenever there was a fiction craze, you would see, for example, in the late 2000s, every book was about every fiction, every novel seemed to be about learning wizardry, witchcraft, necromancy, sorcery, for some odd reason. And then a few years later, all of a sudden, every book, every novel had a vampire versus werewolf theme, a sort of a love triangle scenario. A few years after that, all genres had a strange little kinky BDSM twist. All of a sudden, how strange. After that, everything was about zombies. Zombies, zombies, zombies everywhere, across everything. Even genres where you would not typically see elements of horror brought in, like a hard-boiled detective mystery. Guess what? It was zombies that did it, right? And so the question, the commenter, the question is the answer. Yes, they do, and the reason why is the author who wrote the other book, the one that started this trend in the first place, because they probably took more time and care in producing that book, they're not able to keep up with the demand for it. So what the publisher do is they will flood that genre with similar books, similar titles, even similar characters to give the reader something to do. Think of it almost like as a subscription business where we want our readers to pay us $20, $30 a month for a new book. We got to get those books cranking out. Got to get them cranking out. If the author can only finish one every 2 years, that's not going to work. That gives us 23 other books we need to have the readers buy in that time frame to kind of create a subscription model almost by another name in this category, in this genre. That's why they do that. And we see something similar happening in nonfiction where books on usually on a trend that's in the industry, it will show up and everyone will have an opinion on it or an experience. And the best way as an astute consumer to decide what book to read is what book is being recommended to you. What book is being recommended to you? Now, a book recommendation is not, gosh, everyone on my LinkedIn is talking about all of the same book all at the same time. The issue with that is if everyone's thinking the same thoughts after the same author, the people you're interacting with are probably not going to have fresh thoughts, probably not going to have fresh experiences or fresh ideas. Everyone's going to be showing up at the same meetings with the same one-liner from the book that they all remembered. And you're not getting the diversity of ideas that's essential for effective problem-solving decision-making. The best book reviews, in my experience, there's two of them. This is the best book I've ever read on this topic. And it's like, I never even heard of that author. I better go look it up. It was published in 2017. How? I never heard of this person. And there was somebody praising that person in person online, and you'd not heard of them. But the review, the word of mouth marketing that's been done was rich. It was complete. It was, from the reader's perspective, it was life-changing for them. I gotta go look it up. And they go look it up. Versus, guys, I love this book that everyone else is saying that they loved. It was so wonderful. You should buy it too. Here's my affiliate link. Wink, wink. Like, okay, we see what you're doing there. The other type of praise that's helpful is complete bashing of the book. This is one of the worst books I've ever read on this topic. Blah, 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 blah. Criticism, criticism, criticism. The author obviously never did the research. It's terrible. It's horrible. Oh, so it might be good then. The more intense and generic the negativity directed towards a book, the more useful, practical, and valuable the ideas usually are. It just happened to be that the author had an opinion, maybe perhaps a barbed opinion on an issue that rubbed the reader the wrong way, and so they're going to trash the book. So some of the best books that you'll find that are actually useful to you are those that the author was willing to boldly state their view on something, as unpopular as it was, and risk getting these novel-length negative reviews where it's one ad hominem attack after the next at the author, and there's not any negativity about the book itself. So both of those, the detailed praise review recommendation, as well as the detailed yet generic ad hominem attacks at the author about how terrible of a person they are, no one should ever read this book, it should be banned. Those tend to be the positive recommendation that means the book is worthwhile for reading.
So let's explore those brilliant ideas a little bit. My idea is brilliant, but the book is locked within me. Our audience has an idea, and the book is locked within them too. Can you walk us through the ghostwriting process, especially how you, Joshua, work with a potential author to help capture their authentic voice and insights of that professional that you're working with?
Yes. So my first step in the process is decide if there should be a process. Should there be a step in the first place? So it's a conversation and a very, very low cost and reasonable fee to do my homework, market research. After meeting with the person, this is your book idea. These are your thoughts. Okay, let's see what the market has to say about this. What sort of books are we seeing trending up? What keywords in your space are being searched? Can we map on what is the most commercially viable book for you to write? So you don't launch something and it turns out that 5,000 other authors already wrote effectively the same thing. And so the word of mouth marketing potential, that 92% is next to non-existent for you. We don't want you to do that. So it's actually a conversation to see, okay, if you do write a book, it ought to be this. This would be the correct book for you to write. That would be useful to you, that has the best chance of success. You have a title or subtitle like this, or possibly this. Some authors go, no, that's not the book I want to write. Screw you, Joshua. And that's the end of the conversation. Where their ego is leading them astray, as opposed to what the market is actually saying that they want. And then from there, let's say, okay, Joshua, you're the expert. Let's do this. I have in my stable at Lisec Ghostwriting all of the industry standard, let's say, provisions available, deliverables available. So when someone says, okay, well, we want a book, you actually get a book, not a Word document you have to figure out what to do with. Right. So the formatting, the graphic arts, the cover design, the things like the ISBNs and the other metadata, like a publisher's cataloging and publication block, without which you can't get into bookstores. That's a little thing most independent authors aren't aware of. And then the what's the marketing plan? What's the distribution like? How do we write the book description, the blurb, the log line, all of these things that go into this. Plus, what is the best way to market this? What's the copy we use? How do we promote this? Where should we be interviewed on this? That's something that we take care of for our authors as an all-in-one. And the reason it's all-in-one is because it's what authors need. My very first iteration of working with authors was, okay, we're done. Here's your Word document. I'm holding up a non-existent digital file, right? Here's your non-existent book. Well, no, I want a book. I don't want a Word document. Okay, well, I guess we have to figure this out. And then pull in the same people to our fold and vet them, have a sort of a curated staff, you might say, of people who have done traditionally published books for the big five publishers. So we have that identical process for the quality control, like you were saying, Adam, the quality control and the process of writing the book, structuring the book, revising the book, adding the appropriate number of citations, citing them according to the Chicago Manual style, all the things that make a real book a real book. But it starts with, does it make business sense for you to even do a book at all? And if you did, what would that book be? What's the risk associated with it? What's the size of this market? Those sorts of questions before we jump into actually doing a book, because we might find, yeah, if you want to create an information product, it should be a $47 masterclass that you record in this weekend. Here's the equipment you should buy for it. Not a book. It doesn't make sense for you to do a book. And if that's the case, we will tell them. Otherwise, you're going to write a business card book, perhaps.
I know we're coming close to the end of our time, but I wanted to ask, what's your top advice for somebody contemplating writing a book, but unsure where to start, or even if it's the right move for them in their career?
Start with the end in mind. And that is, what is the ultimate outcome that you are confident your book can provide? So in terms of outcomes, there's going to be functional outcomes, there's going to be emotional outcomes, there's going to be financial outcomes. So it's going to help them do something better, be something better, solve a problem better, faster. They're going to feel a certain way after reading it. They're going to feel confident. They're going to feel energized. They're going to feel driven to do the thing they know they should do anyway, but haven't found the right excuse to tell themselves to do it yet. Or it's going to teach them practical ways to earn additional money, save additional money, or save time, right? So all dimensions of a book's value is within that space of three: functional, emotional, and financial value. So what are the outcomes that readers can expect to get after reading a book? Well, it's just tips on, okay, you should not do a book. Well, it's just some tactics. Don't do a book. Well, I've got some stories. Don't do a book. What we need to get clear on is, what is your value stack of the functional, emotional, and financial value that you can provide readers. Well, after reading this book, you will be able to, if you can fill in the blank there, that's where you should start as an aspiring author. After reading this book, you will be able to, and then you should be able to blast out 10, 15 bullets that all align with functional, emotional, or financial value outcomes. You'll be able to do this better. You'll be able to figure this out better. You'll feel this way differently. You'll earn this. You'll have a better shot at this. You'll increase your odds of this, and you'll save at least a year on this. The sort of stack of bullet points would be the very first exercise you should do as an aspiring author.
Fantastic. Tim, I see you nodding. Anything to add to that?
No, nothing at all. What I would say is that quite often, and we're here to talk about ghostwriting, and I think quite often people think that ghostwriting is about self-publishing, but I know that people that have had their books who've actually published through major publishers, but they've still used ghostwriters, because I know that Adam was interviewed for a book by somebody that was ghost written for Kogan Page, I think it was. So this isn't just about self-publishing. Some people are going out through major publishers and they're getting ghostwriters as well.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes the publisher will say, "You need a ghostwriter." we've been at this for 3 months now. You're at the deadline, and you have not given it anything that's publishable, much less editable. We have this.
I think the person in this case didn't feel confident that they could actually deliver something in the time frame.
Yes. So I've done both, where it was basically the publisher recommended the ghostwriting, or the author brought the ghostwriter, and that was just going to be how it was. And well, as long as you can meet your deadlines and it's good enough for us, and it just needs some basic copy editing, it's good enough for us and just needs some basic copy editing. It can go either way, the independent route or the traditional publishing route. Ghostwriting can.
I like what Bob Britton shares. He says, write the last sentence of the book first. There's always someone out there who judges a book that way. Great idea. Joshua, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. How can people learn more about you? How can they get in touch?
It's been my pleasure, Rob, Tim, Adam, Tracy. I appreciate all the engagement you've given here today and prompting, and that's always fun. I, of course, am available at lisec@ghostwriting.com. I'm here on LinkedIn, and if you search Joshua Lisec on any social media platform, you'll probably find a version of me out there somewhere. And, of course, my own book, So Good They Call You a Fake, is available on Amazon and elsewhere. Fine books are sold around the internet in over 100 countries.
Fantastic. Hopefully we've inspired some people to follow through on those New Year's resolutions and get that book unlocked. Excellent. This has been another edition of the Digital Download. We hope you like what you heard. If you have something to say, if you want to be a part of the show, we welcome you to be a guest. There's a QR code on screen. You can scan that and fill out the Be Our Guest form, or you can visit us at digitaldownload.live. Under the Be Our Guest link, you can fill out that same form. This is also our last episode of 2023. So I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for another fantastic year. And we look forward to seeing everyone again in 2024. In the meantime, happy holidays, safe and happy New Year. And we will see everyone next year. Bye all.
Thanks, Josh.